Perfect. It's been really wonderful talking to you and getting a sense of your journey and how you engaged with Good Morning Portugal before and coming to the meetup as well. So you know where we are on a Wednesday.
Yes, I do.
And you know where we are as a community. So make sure we stay in touch, please.
Well, thank you for your efforts in bringing this community together, because you make it easier, more comfortable, less stressful for all of us
thank you.
by facilitating this.
Oh, that's
so
lovely to hear.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Lovely to hear that. Thank you very much indeed. Well, hello, America. This is Portugal. Munson here from Good Morning Portugal, and we've got a very special webinar presentation for you tonight. Invest in Portugal and start a business here in Portugal with Raquel from Lighthouse Consulting and Steven Whyte, who's joining us with a few cracking ideas about how to get started in investment in Portugal. And Raquel will cover the nuts and bolts of actually starting a business here in Portugal as well. But before that, let's talk to Raquel, because we've got a nice little warm-up. Good evening to you, Raquel. How are you?
Hi, good. Thank you, Carl. Thank you so much for having me.
Lovely to see you here. And we've got a little bit of a warm-up this evening.
Yeah.
With some beautiful tour of a lovely property that you are connected with in some way. Tell us about the wonderful Coownership.
Coownership is the world's capital of cork. So it's a big deal. It's a very nice city. It's lovely. You'll see cork all around, of course. You should visit. There's like a great river, and there's a river beach there as well. It's a great historical place, and it's close enough to Lisbon to be able to go and come on the weekend. And this is something that it's really close to my heart. It's a very I was born here in Lisbon, but this is a place that I just absolutely fell in love with. I think it's very green. It's not like as dry as Alentejo. It's not as cold as going up north. So it's a very nice balance between everything that the country has to offer. And I just fell in love with the place, actually. So
it's kind of bittersweet for you as well, isn't it? Because this is absolutely a dream home, which may now become somebody else's dream. It's funny how things turn out, isn't it? I guess you're a bit busy with family life to put in the investment of time, probably for one thing, in this beautiful site.
Yeah, we were talking, Carl, because I think this was like probably 10 years too soon. It was a dream of mine to have a little bit of land and have some animals and actually recover like ancient species of apples and tomatoes and farming things that are like not being farmed at all. And so we actually bought this farm, but every weekend I have 3 daughters, as some of you may know, and just the social life of these creatures, I cannot with these guys. Seriously. So every weekend we have something to go to, or some party or whatever. And this is such a great land that everything like grows. And if I don't go like every week or every other week, then I have like a whole tropical forest over there. So it really has to be something that is maintained, and it's kind of breaking my heart that I'm leaving it, not abandoned, but I'm not taking proper care. So we've decided to part ways with it. I mean, maybe in 10 years time we'll look into it again, but now it's just not I'm just not at the life stage where I can take good care of it, because we were thinking about investing and doing like an AL, or like for yoga retreats. Oh, wow. It's great for mushroom farming. I mean, it has so much potential, but I just cannot dedicate myself to it right now. And I feel
really bad about making you talk about it, but I think
that's fine.
It's a real dream of a place, and I think
it is.
It could be for somebody else now, and we totally get the predicament that you described there. It does need some sort of vigilant care, doesn't it? A small farm 2 hectares of land already planted with fruit trees of various species and olive trees, which can be harvested in exchange for olive oil at the local lagar. This farm has a solar panel, traditional bread oven, swimming pool, storage room, and other facilities. So look at this; it's beautifully done. So you are some way through a renovation of the place.
Yes, we did that. This was like one of our first projects that we did in terms of renovation. You know, I have a construction company, and this was like, since it was for us, it was like, you know, a first experiment, and it went really well. We chose everything like the way, I mean, this floor we like ordered from 5 different stores across the country, but it went really well. We just remodeled what was there. It wasn't like a ruin, but it wasn't updated. It didn't have a bathroom and such, and we remodeled it, and we actually spent one of the lockdowns in there, which was absolutely great because we were like playing tennis and swimming and whatever, and everybody was locked inside their houses.
Yeah.
And this has like this warehouse which can be reconverted, and that was our idea at the start, to another house, or another complex that you can use in other ways. And so we just don't have the time. So if anybody wants to have a great farm, a very someplace that has all the love in the world, as you can see, please reach out. And we'll go and see it, and we'll show it off to you guys. But it's in a great place. It's 45 minutes away from Lisbon, so it's and the roads are like straight away. There's like one curve up until you get there. Because I don't like driving, so it had to be really close to Lisbon.
Right.
So and it's there's a great potential there, because it's meanwhile, while they don't close the doors on the Golden Visa, it's eligible for the Golden Visa at the 20% discount, because it's in an interior area and in a low density area. Yeah.
Okay. How lovely. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Well, that's many people's dream, I think, isn't it? Having a little small holding where you can grow your own food. I imagine there are boreholes and wells there as well, are there?
Yes, there's water abundantly, so no worries about that. There's, the land is great. There's water. There's literally everything. If you want something off grid, it's possible too. So
amazing.
Very adaptable.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that with us. We're warming up tonight. Actually, you are your own warm-up act, because you'll be talking about how to start a business here in Portugal. And I think we have people here who will be asking you questions. Darren wanted to know a thing or two about having your own fiscal representative, tax accountant, and that sort of thing, which is a little bit different to what he's used to in the UK. And Ubi, I think, will be interested in many of the things that will be said here this evening. Although that's a little bit familiar, Ubi. Well, hola, boy, howdy, seeing the farm maybe there. He fancies himself as a bit of a rancher on that thing there. Amorim, he recognised as, big Cork area, of course. And the Global Nobles, did you like the look of that as a little bit of a rural getaway, just 45 minutes from Lisbon? Absolutely beautiful. Rewatch the start of the show if you want to see that again, or I'm sure Raquel or myself can send you some brochures and further pictures as well. Let's bring on the other star of the show this evening and say good evening now to Steven Whyte of Home Miners Property Investment. How are you? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been quite some time, Carl. How are you doing?
I'm really well and delighted to see you back on our screen, and excited about what you have to share with us this evening. It's interesting the reaction you tend to get. I think people are saying, "Oh, these are challenging, difficult times. Might not be the best time to get into investment. You need to sort of draw your belt in." And I think it was you, wasn't it, who said on the morning show, you're the sort of person when you see a fire and people running away from it, you run towards it to see what's going on, and that might be the way you see investment, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. My camera looks like it's slowing down there. I hope you can hear me okay.
We can hear you absolutely fine. It is a little bit difficult when it's not lip syncing. I don't think it is for me at the moment. But let's
right.
carry on, because we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, so investing in anywhere, actually, a lot of people have the idea like, property prices are dropping. I should sell my house before the value of it goes out of the way. Well, people aren't thinking about the cash flowing asset that you have during these times. During these times, yes, the value of your home is going down a little bit, but at the same time, you're also maintaining a asset that will usually grow in value over time as well too. So for every time that it comes down, it usually goes up double, for example.
Okay.
I mean, we can even take for how the UK market has gone. Back in 2008, you could purchase a house just outside London for 300,000. Good luck doing that now.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? And now rental demand is higher than ever, and not just in London or Portugal, all over the world.
Yeah.
Because interest rates are so high, where most regular working people cannot afford to purchase a home anymore. The banks want too much out of you for what you want to, for what kind of money you have as a down payment.
Yes.
And, renting is becoming the new norm. Renting rooms is becoming the new norm. And I think I talked about this on the last podcast or a radio show that you have here, that room rentals are on the rise. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are saying, oh, I need to find a room ASAP. Well, how about renting a property ASAP and then subletting the rooms?
Yes. Yep. Very good. Okay. And it would appear to be the case that what the baby boomers told us, Gen Xers, that all you had to do was work hard, you would be able to get a house and have an asset like they had. The world's changed a bit. It's not. We were sold a pup with that life dream, I think. But that's not to say there aren't creative ways around it, and that's exactly what you're going to be talking about this evening. Before Steven gets started, Raquel, do you have a view on that as a Portuguese business owner and a Portuguese person with the climate here in Portugal at the moment?
Sadly, I can say that I am old enough to have lived through some financial crisis here in Portugal, and this is something that I have a very positive outlook on everything, and this is not an exception. I mean, we do have struggles, but there was never a time that I remember like easily that there was such a little unemployment rate in Portugal, that the PIB was on the rise, that the economic situation was good. I know about the interest rates, that's hurting us a lot, and that's hurting a lot of people. But I think people just have a short memory, because if you just look back 10 years ago, things were very, very different. Okay. There were a lot more people living on the streets. There were a lot more people with less of everything, and unable to find any type of job. And that is a real struggle. I mean, now I don't see that. I mean, I see we have struggles. I see we don't rise economically as fast as other European countries. I see that. But I also see that nowadays we have more conditions and such a welfare that we did not have 10, 15 years ago at all.
Very interesting to get that perspective, because Steven might have still been at school. I don't mean to sound patronizing, Steven. I think you are the youngster here.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry,
don't get me depressed.
And I wasn't here in the country at the time. I was elsewhere. Sorry about that. But thank you very much for that vignette and reminder, really, of how things have changed. It's a bit like people who say the world is so violent. I mean, and there are so many wars going on. You'll have somebody who's researched this who says, actually, there have never been so few wars. It's not to say there aren't any, but the general picture has improved. So I get your point there. Barack is joining us tonight from Texas. Allah from Texas. So nice to be on his Katabi company. And howdy, yes, spot on. That was probably Ubi was saying the right thing earlier on. And Marta Brinquinho is here from Irish as well. And going back to Cortica, apparently, Ubi says all the winning Portuguese, Brazilian Nazaré surfers have Cortica inlays in their boards. That sounds really heavy, but maybe that's right. Maybe that is exactly.
Oh no, cork is very light, eh? Cork is very light in weight.
I beg your pardon. I was thinking it was a Cortica. I was completely confused in my mind now. I thought it was some sort of marble, ceramic inlay that they were using.
I know, cortiça. It misses the little cortiça.
That's what threw me, not having the Cedilla on there, Ubi. Okay,
Exactly.
let's move on then. So you have a range of ideas to whet the appetites of would-be investors, and they're not necessarily the conventional types of ideas, are they, Stephen?
Say again there, you cut out.
You have some ideas for us when it comes to investing, and they may not exactly be the conventional sorts of ideas, because I think hacks and lateral ways of thinking around this are needed at the moment.
Yeah, so like, for example, today I wanted to talk about what we call in North America as like bird dogging. So bird dogging, it's not, a crazy position you do with your friends. It's not something that, is of the norm, but it's something in the sense of how back in the day, when people would go hunting for ducks, they'd send the dog to go fetch the bird. In the same sense, we want to look at this as finding deals for investors. So let's take, for example, this is kind of like a way that I started out in property. I started out bird dogging deals for local investors. I started joining local groups and finding out what people were looking for in regards to property deals. And I would pretty much go out and do all the footwork for them. In exchange for finding them these deals, I would also charge a fee. So essentially, I'm making money from doing, maybe a little bit of research and Google reviews.
Okay.
If you want, I could go over the topics that, the step-by-step.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I think that would be excellent. We get the concept for sure. So you're scouting effectively, and like a commission-based scout, perhaps.
Yeah.
For other investors at this point.
Yeah, I started off doing this on my side, and I would say step one is starting out with the research. In any property investment strategy, you need to do your research, and you need to start identifying the areas that you're going into. For example, Portugal, you need to find where the rental demands are. Just because Lisbon and Porto and the Algarve are, great for foreigners, there's also Portuguese renters as well too. There's also Brazilian renters. There's tons of people coming to Portugal other from the fact of, tourism. They're coming there to go to school. They're coming there to work. They're coming there to, just come to Portugal and live there. People like myself. There's a very high demand for, property room rentals at the moment. And there's also a very high demand for properties that people can buy, fix, and sell. So again, that's where I would say step one is doing your research, looking at vacancy rates. You can look at this kind of stuff on Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia, Idealista, or even Facebook. And you can look at what occupancy rates are going on in the area, and you can find out where is in demand.
On that note, and I think are you struggling a little bit? You're seeing your picture and you're hearing yourself, but the pictures aren't, the lip sync isn't there, is it? Which I think must be a bit off-putting, but you're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, it's kind of catching me off guard. I'm not too sure if I should slow down or
No, you're doing great, and we can hear you. But this is back to the 2020 census, and here's a little bit of research for you now. You could be forgiven for thinking that the great big investment opportunities, and they are, of course, with the incoming American visitors, but they're number 19 in the populations coming to Portugal. There are other populations and nationalities to serve here, as you said, Brazilians, 183, nearly 184,000 in 2020. The Brits, nearly 50,000 of them, and perhaps houses of multiple occupation and the room rentals that you thought of. So there's our first kind of laterally thought solution there to think about what else is going on in Portugal beyond, I suppose, your own experience. And in the circles I work in, I would tend to be speaking to Americans and Brits and other Europeans. And that excludes a lot of other people, of course, and therefore a lot of other opportunity.
Yeah, it does. But at the same time, we're in a day and age where most people speak 2 to 3 languages. Even myself, I speak a little bit of English. Well, I speak all of English. I speak a little bit of Spanish, Portuguese, piri cerveja. That's about it. And then I also speak a little bit of Cantonese as well too. Growing up in Vancouver, you kind of had to learn.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And in regards to that, it's identifying where the demand is. So getting back to like the kind of property side of things, once you've identified the promising area, it's pretty much you need to start looking for deals.
Yeah.
You can start looking ways of distressed properties, whether or not it's being purchased below market value, or you can look at properties that can be done up in value, properties that can be split into 2 or maybe even 3 units. People like myself are looking for deals like these, and I'm more than willing to pay for the connection of who owns this property.
Yes.
You're doing the footwork for me.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that you can easily look at these places on Idealista. You can go to real estate agencies like EXP, Keller Williams, Century 21, Remax, local Portuguese banks. There's a lot of bank repossession properties that are out there. You can go to other smaller agencies as well too. Or you can just work with your local real estate agent and see what's available out there for a property that would work as a property, maybe even buy, fix, and sell, or even as a rental.
Okay. So that's the first part then, is doing your research, understanding what's going on, and you might be doing that for somebody else as a way to make money, or you may be doing it for yourself. And that's probably the latter group we're talking about here, is people with some money to invest, some resources to invest, and a smart way of going about it like this. You've given us some of the sources, well, certainly the end users, the potential end users, and places to find those properties. What's next after that?
I mean, that part I just wanted to touch on, just because with those 2 steps alone, you can be, especially if you become good at finding these deals, you could scale to make a lot of money. So, for example, myself, I started out making a list of distressed properties, and I would sell this list to either real estate agents, or I would sell them to local investors. And it would be the same list over and over again. So let's say I had a list of 10 properties of motivated sellers. I would just keep selling that list over and over until the properties are sold. I would just have to keep on top of that.
Wow. Okay.
So, I'm not selling them for 1,000 or 2,000 euros, for example. I'm selling them for like 50 euros.
Yes.
But 50 times 5, do the math.
Yes.
It ends up adding up. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of people don't seem to realize, is that even just performing little situations like this, you can make money without essentially using any money. If you have nothing to provide or nothing to bring to the table, bring your expertise, bring what you're good at, if people in your neighborhood are trying to get rid of their properties, use that as a way to leverage yourself, to get yourself in that room. Put yourself in the fire.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. And that breaks it down incrementally, and perhaps deals with that big, I suppose the first objection to the ideas we're talking about tonight, is that I don't have any money to get into investment.
Yeah. So like I said, if you don't have any money, you can start out saving up like this. I guess going on from here, the next couple of steps, I would essentially say, once you've saved up about 5 to maybe 10,000 euros to put into a property, you can invest with people like myself, where we do a return on investment in 6 to 10 months. So we usually put it into properties that will rent and then legally sublet onto Airbnb.
Okay. Very good. So that gets, we're talking about the ladder here, aren't we? An investment ladder, if not a property related investment ladder.
Yeah.
And so once you've created your first assets for investment, and you've given us the blueprint for doing that, then you find you're basically putting in a part share of a bigger investment with somebody who knows what they're doing, like you.
Yeah. So you can go about it that way, or you can negotiate and acquire your own deals. So let's say you got really good at this deal sourcing, and you found these deals and you were making lots of money. You save up maybe 10 to 20,000 euros. Once you've identified a property you're interested in, it's time to negotiate and, make the deal work for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the funds to purchase the property outright, consider creative financing opportunities like seller financing, which is kind of like rent to buy, or a lease option agreement, which is, renting a property for a fixed amount of years with the option to buy after.
Okay. Can you illustrate that further, how that might work? I mean, that at the moment is a wonderful opportunity for both parties, isn't it? Somebody who reliably pays rent but can't get a mortgage, and the person who wants to go about funding their property in a different way. Could you illustrate that a little bit further?
So let's take, for example, I know quite a few people in Portugal inherit properties. Okay. But not everyone wants to take care of them. It's not exactly for the kind-hearted either. Property investment in itself or property upkeep is not an easy thing. But there are people out there that, have inherited property, let's say from their aunts, uncles, or even grandparents. And they say, well, it's in a ruin. I don't really want anything to do with it. How much is this worth?
Yeah.
And if you give them a price that works for you, sure, you can do a situation where you say, listen, if I pay you a rent for this fixed amount of time period and you maybe find the capital to put in the renovations, when you go to purchase the property, there's equity in the deal because now you've agreed to purchase the property, let's say for 20 or 30,000 euros. You spent maybe 20 or 30,000 euros on the renovations, but now the house is worth 200,000.
Yeah.
There's a big spread in the gap there for equity, or even just buying a property below market value, and you can even recycle that equity that you have in the property to purchase another one.
Yeah. Can I pause you for a moment there, because I'd love to bring Raquel in here. I mean, Steven really has done his research. This is a really common thing in Portugal, isn't it? People inheriting property. I have a sense that in the UK, where Steven and I have a little bit more experience, if someone rings you up saying, like a solicitor who says, we've got some bad news, one of your relatives you didn't actually know has died, but they've left you a property, you would be delighted. And I sometimes get the feeling in Portugal that it's the opposite. Sometimes, extended cousins and families and grandchildren actually dread that call, that they've got another property in the family portfolio that they've now got to maintain. Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed feelings kind of situation, because if there's a lot of people involved, it's like hell to get them all together to decide what, because it's all co-ownership when people inherit. And so you either get everybody on board through the same direction, either sell or rent or whatever, or it's impossible to manage. So you have a property that's co-owned by 20 people or 15 or 10 or whatever that don't even know each other. And sometimes people have Steven's vision and say, let's put in a little bit of money to invest and then sell it at a higher price. But then other people don't have them even like €5 to invest or whatever, and they don't want to do anything with it. They just want to sell it. But then it's just a bag of cats basically, and that's why a lot of these properties are abandoned and lay abandoned, because nobody can buy it. Nobody can get everybody together, and then if any one of those people end up dying, you have the inheritance of one of the inheritance. So it can be tricky.
However, it does mean that there are these properties that are hanging there, and managing that situation and giving those people a collective solution could be pretty smart. And I think that's what Steven's talking about here, right? It's a very situation, and it does account for quite a lot of dilapidated and neglected property as well, of course, is what we discover. So thank you, Steven, for that, and for having Raquel come in and talk about the cultural situation there. A great idea. Squire of the Shires, we've been looking at those sort of properties that are mentioned, fixer-uppers that tick customers' boxes to then rent out and to sell. and then eventually to buy our own. So you're working that ladder as well. And tell me about it, says Barandi, who's in that situation, I think, of many relatives who have some skin in the game of a particular property. Back to you then, Steven.
I'd say the next thing on the list would be to make money through property. If you're not buying and fixing and selling, you can always rent property as well too. Whether you're buying a property to rent out to more people or you're renting property to legally sublet. A lot of people think subletting is illegal, but people don't realize that most of your hotels that you visit don't actually own the property that they're on. There's tons of situations, even property management teams. A lot of property management companies do not own the homes that they are renting out. They're subletting out to other people, just legally. Once the owner knows what's going on with the situation, it's a legal sublet. And as long as you have the legal documents in there, maybe Raquel can touch on that.
Yeah, I was exactly nodding because it is totally legal. Nothing even unusual about it. You just have to have the authorization, of course, of the first of the homeowner to then sublet the property. And rent to rent is something that it's not a tradition here in Portugal. I don't see a lot of people doing it outside the property management industry. And I think that it is a shame because a lot of people have property that's just hanging around or it's closed up or whatever, and because just people don't have the time or don't know really how to do it. And this is a great solution to just to don't be bothered with anything, and you just give that property out to someone who will then manage and give you a cut of the profit. I think for me that's pretty perfect.
Yeah,
I mean, it's passive income.
Yep, absolutely. And again, it comes back to the research, doesn't it? And the assumption possibly that because it doesn't generally go on, that it's either not allowed or illegal. And I guess when Steven's when you've been doing your research, you've been shaking trees to double check on that. It is actually legal. It's just that people don't do it. And so it seems unusual and implausible in this culture.
Yeah, I tried to figure out, how people are making money in property. And, when I first started out in property, I didn't have any money to start with. I'm not saying that I grew up in a bad neighborhood or anything of that sort, but, I didn't have tens of thousands of euros, pounds, or dollars to invest. Mm-hmm. I started out with absolutely nothing, and I just saved my way up. And, if I skipped a couple stones, I actually ended up coming across people that said, well, I have a problem rental and I don't know what to do about it. And I said, well, what if I pay you, a fixed rent every month and you allow me to run my Airbnb through here, my Airbnb platform through here, especially if they're in a location that's close to a stadium or close to a tourist attraction, or even close to the beach. There's tons of those in Portugal. Yeah. You can make a lot of money through that. And I was actually speaking to Raquel. She was actually consulting me through a project that I'm working on with a client where we're going to be able to make about 20,000 euros in 1 year.
Well, that's not too shabby at the moment, is it? Depending on what the investment is, of course, but that sounds okay.
Well, the investment it entails renting a property and then subletting it onto Airbnb, or renting it out to, let's say, for example, contractors.
Yeah.
Contractors are always looking for places to stay. So if you can get on top of, where, property is booming, places like Porto, Lisbon, Setúbal, those are just some of the places that construction has been going through the roof. But not everyone lives in Lisbon. Some people are coming from the outside.
Yes, funny you should say that. I was involved in a property in what would I think be described as the middle of nowhere. There were blueprints to redevelop it into 3 homes. It was an old pension. It was a 15-bedroom, a guest house in central Portugal, in a beautiful little town, but not anywhere where anyone is. It's not on the hot list of property guides at the moment. And there were blueprints to turn it into 3, and they were very credible and attractive blueprints to turn it into 3 separate homes. But what actually happened, and I think this comes back to the way you're thinking and talking, is that it ultimately was bought and then turned into a house of multiple occupation for agricultural workers. And that is clearly a somebody thinking, not just thinking, what would I like to do ideally, but what is possible in the current economic landscape and what's the local requirement. And so a great example of exactly what you're talking about there. And there must be any number of these big houses, which are probably which aren't on people's most attractive lists as family homes, but would be ideal for something like that.
Yeah. So like, for example, this place is in an area where there's demand for room rentals, but there's not enough rental properties. So let's take, for example, most people don't stay in this target location. If you want to find out, please contact me via email. In this target location, there's a high demand for room rentals, but not a high demand for families.
Yeah.
So I've started to look at places that have, 4 bedrooms or more, and started to say, I understand that your property has been on the market for the last 6 months. But listen, I can guarantee you a rent for this fixed amount of time period. And as long as the rent is low enough down and, the room rentals, a furnished room rental is up, if there's an area to make profit, I'll do it.
Very good. Very good. Excellent stuff. Okay. Any other examples then, Steven?
Like I said, it's mostly just Airbnb and even just straight up room rentals. Again, when it comes towards Airbnb, I do recommend that you get AL license, Alimentação Local license. This is just for, short-term lets, especially when you're renting to digital nomads. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Oh, yes. Of course. A great growth area here with the associated visa as well.
Yes. Okay. A lot of people are willing to pay 6 to 10 months upfront for their property. But maybe, Raquel, you could touch on that for something that we found out recently.
She's not going to spill the beans on that.
No, this is something that actually came across with a client of mine that I was helping with the rental. And the homeowner had actually was, and he had a lawyer, everything. And they were proposing in the contract that we would pay like 4 or 5 months rent in advance and then 4 or 5 months in deposit or whatever. And then I was, well, this is fine. There's just a little issue with this, which is that it's illegal. and the other guy just looked at me and was like, what? And I was like, it's illegal. So since January, I mean, I don't know if you've been aware or not, but the law changed, and now you cannot ask for more than 2 rents in advance and 2 deposits. So obviously this will be out of the contract. And I see the lawyer like Googling up really quick and saying, oh my gosh, you are correct. This was very recent and such and such. So for everybody, there was a recent change in law, and nowadays you can only ask, if you're a homeowner or property owner, you can only ask for 2 months in advance and 2 deposits in advance. So at the start of any contract, that would mean, for transparency's sake, it would mean 5 rents. So the one from the start, so the first month, and you can then ask for 2 more rents and 2 deposits. Okay, and this because there were a lot of people asking for 1 year's amount of rent and deposits, and then it was hell to get that deposit back, because then they said that, I need to paint or I need to do whatever, and it was very hard for the tenants to get their deposits back. And so there was this recent change in law. Okay, be mindful of this.
Absolutely. And the other one, of course, is the restrictions on AL licenses. But that's in the due diligence, isn't it, Steven? The idea is good, but you've just got to check if it's going to work in the locality you're choosing.
Yeah. So a lot of people think with what the government is doing right now, that, we're going to lose Airbnb and all these big rental arbitrage companies. Mm-hmm. People have to remember Portugal is the 3rd most reliant on tourism in all of the EU. That's saying a lot. I don't. If they did get rid of it, I would be really concerned for what's going on over there. But I don't think it'll go anytime soon. I don't think anything will be moving away personally. But it's just you have to learn how to manage and maintain yourself.
Yes.
Actually, let me rephrase that. Walk into the fire. Sometimes you just got to do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let us make that a caveat. What we're talking about here is investment, and with investment comes risk. The smart thing that's being talked about here is the hacks and the alternative ways, and rethinking things like I could never do that, or I don't have enough money to do that. Those are a couple of dragons that have already been slayed this evening. And with the way that Steven's looking and talking about this, it looks like everybody has a crack at this who might want to and who's prepared to put in the work. And the thought processes behind it. So what else can you tell us before we move on to Raquel's part of the presentation tonight and talking about setting up the business, which of course you might need to do to manage all this money that's coming in, Steven?
Yeah, so I definitely recommend finding a consultant or someone who knows what they're doing. I cannot thank Raquel enough for the amount of times ever since I've met her, how many radio shows ago, how she's helped me and she's guided me in the right direction for what I need to do, especially when it comes to licensing or even just property investment. One of the biggest issues that I have right now as an investor is that there's a lack of property management. So a lot of the stuff that I have to do is hands-on. A lot of the projects that I have to take on are hands-on. I'd say about 80% of the projects that I do take on, I'm working on them personally myself.
Yeah.
And I have to make time for office work. I have to make time for accounting. And, I can always outsource that down the road. But, I always have to make sure everything is rolling out in the right way. And Raquel really makes that an easier process for myself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good.
Honestly, thank you very much.
Well, it's great. And the combination you're seeing on your screen tonight on this evening special is our third Wednesday combo of enterprising people, and not just enterprising, but also the logistics and the legalities of running a business as well. So we Q&A that every third Wednesday of the month on the Good Morning Portugal show. Is there anything else you want to say, Steven? I mean, I know you personally mentor people in this as well. So you've given away a few ideas free of charge tonight, but people can work with you more closely.
Yeah, so I actually tried to get her on tonight, but I have a few mentees that are Portuguese people. They started out with absolutely nothing. They were working regular 9-to-5 jobs at one point. And after 6 months of working with me, they were able to quit their jobs and maintain property investment full time. Just a little disclaimer, I'm not saying for anyone to quit their job and jump into property investment.
Well done. Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't seem to realize how much leverage having a job is.
Yeah.
You're able to take out loans from the bank. You're able to get a mortgage a lot easier. It's just a lot more stable when you have a day job, and what you're trying to do is make so much money on your side income that it ends up taking over your day job. Mm-hmm. And that's where even myself, I'm trying to get to at that point. I still work, a little part-time job here and there just to maintain the security for the banks, and that I'm able to get a mortgage easier, just because a lot of, especially as a foreigner coming into Portugal, they want to see more than 2 years worth of income before you can get financing.
Okay, well, it's admirable and inspiring what you've done here, Steven, and the fact that you've inspired others, Portuguese people as well, to get involved in this is fantastic. So we look forward to hearing more about this as the months and years unfold, and then we're all drinking cocktails one day on a beach together as well. Thank you so far for what you've shared with us this evening. Dougie's on the same sort of wavelength here. He says he was involved, and he's getting well soon in hospital. He broke his pelvis at the weekend. and tuning in tonight. Was involved in a business idea to help out one of my expat friends into a property rental Airbnb, but sadly no longer feasible due to my recent injury. It was tax efficient too. Between us, we were sorted. I funds to make the rentals feasible. My friend had the property already, and we were going to outsource the kitting out and all the legalities, including tax as well. I'm sorry to hear that's come to. Maybe Stephen could pick that up for you, and at a slight licensing cost. It might not be dead in the water, right?
Maybe I'll, I could pay rent for a couple of months and put the place on Airbnb and give you a guaranteed rent every month for a fixed term contract.
Might be worth having a chat with Stephen there, Doug, and get well soon, my friend. Right, the business side, setting up the business. And that was, I think, one of Stephen's pieces of advice there is work with the professionals. Now, clearly, you need to do that probably in your home country for the sake of dotting the I's and crossing the T's. But certainly when you're abroad here in Portugal, I found it nightmarish running a business here. So you need someone like Raquel. Just how difficult is it starting a business here in Portugal, Raquel?
For me, I think it's very easy, and I tried to make it as simple as it can be. Yeah. And for instance, my clients, and I've done this, and Bridget, if I was commenting earlier, those types of processes are very gratifying to me, because these are people from all over the world, and they trust someone that obviously they didn't know at the time. Now they do, but they didn't at the time. Mm-hmm. And it just amazes me that, you can put the trust into someone that you don't know. You're, of course, in a different country. And now one of the shareholders has moved in, and he lives in Madeira. And this was like almost a year ago. And to see how it was then to what it was now. I mean, it was shareholders from all over the world. Nobody was here, and everything was done remotely. And that is what I try to do with my clients. I mean, I try to. It's not rocket science. It's not brain surgery, but it can be tricky if you don't know the rules. I usually say that when someone knows what they're talking about, they can make it very simple. And that's what I try to do with my clients. I try to make everything very simple. If people want a more hands-on approach, that's fine, and I'll just talk them through every step of the way. If people have the previous experience in having companies, of course they'll be more aware of certain terms and certain things that you have to do, and that's easier. If not, I try to explain every step of the way and what people are getting into, because a lot of times people don't even know what can be done. But what I do not want to see is people not investing in their own business or in their own business idea just because they think it's very complicated to create a company. Okay. If you have the right person with you, it's not complicated. It can be very simple.
Yeah. And what a great backdrop. That's the saving grace for me. I've learned the hard way, I think, and it would have been great to meet you 5 years ago. But yes.
I was working.
What makes it okay is where the backdrop where I've had all this stress is fantastic. So it is a great place to have a business as a country and a culture. And here we are. I think it's becoming easier and easier for foreigners and immigrants and expats moving in. You have a few testimonials live on screen. Bridge Defy Foundation. Hi, great to be listening. Raquel has been great in getting our business set up. Thank you very much for that. With Marta singing your praises as well. Very useful information. Please share it because nobody knows. Thank you, Raquel, as well. And just in, Amalia Ferreira, thank you for your precious advice. Thank you, Raquel. So obviously another happy customer there. I've got a question specifically then, because so much of Portuguese business does revolve around this, the NIF. And I don't say NIF number anymore because it is a numero, Identificação Fiscal, I think. So you don't say number twice. You just call it the NIF. Does everybody, asked Darren, get a personal tax accountant here? I mean, obviously in the UK we don't. I would initially have a simple tax affair of employment at one workplace. But I'm a bit confused about the NIF situation and how to get the tax benefits from it. So that's all good grandparents get their grandchildren a NIF at birth, don't they, to make it life easier for them. What is the NIF? Let's go back to basics.
The NIF is the número de identificação fiscal. So it's a tax identification number. And everybody gets one. Like, well, both my daughters were born here in Cascais, and they get their citizen card that has the NIF already. So it gets attributed to them right at birth. And this is a number that's going to I was going to say haunt you, but not the case. It's going to follow you all across your life. And it's basically your identification in terms of the tax obligation, and it serves also as since it's a unique identifier. It also serves not as an identification, but in every aspect of your income life, let's say. So either if you're asking for an invoice, like if you go to a restaurant, you can give out your NIF. And a lot of people, I don't know if it was you, Carl, that was saying that, I don't know why everybody asks for. No, it was Tabitha, a friend of mine, sorry. And she was like, I don't know why everybody asks for an invoice with NIF here. I don't know what that does. And I'll explain to you what that does. If you, when you go out to restaurants, when you go out to eat, even as a personal, private, not within a company, a kind of situation, you go out to eat and you pay your restaurant, and then you ask for an invoice with your own NIF, that means that the system, which is centralized, gets the information that you paid that amount to the restaurant. And up to a certain degree, there's deductions that you can make to your personal income, so you don't pay as much IRS personal income tax by the end of the year. So of course these limits are very low, and it's these thresholds are very easily achieved. But in any case, these are deductions that you can have on your income to pay less personal income tax. But to say this, that all of the tax system in Portugal is centralized and automatic. So whenever anybody writes out an invoice, and I think I talked about this in a previous show, a lot of people that are not from Portugal think that they can write up an invoice wherever on a piece of paper. You cannot. Invoices have to be written in a specific software program that is authorized and linked to the tax authority. And so when you ask that invoice in that restaurant, then the system communicates that you, with the NIF number XXX, you paid the restaurant owner with its number NIF XXX, that amount of money. And so it's all centralized. By the end of the year, you don't need to include or insert any information in the system. Sometimes you have to go and check the invoices, because there are different sectors of activity, of economic activity, with different thresholds, but that's about it. Okay, the system is all linked. And so this number, this NIF number, will help you through that. Of course, if you have a company, it has a whole other kind of functions.
Great, thank you very much for that. I hope that helps there, Darren, with that particular question. So on a personal level, that's helping you with your tax relief on a number of headings. Eating out, the example given there. That's why they ask you in the supermarket as well if you have your quantity. So you get your the vet, the hairdresser, the mechanic, all of these areas you can get tax relief, but only if you've given your NIF number and validated those receipts. In the back office, I was showing you, and there's a very complex, incredible website, the Portal das Finanças here in Portugal, and your IRS, your NIF validations, all of that, and even issuing the green receipts that Raquel talked about there, the official receipts from business to business, are done through that portal as well. So thank you for that. So that's your basic human being who isn't running a business can get those benefits using the NIF number. When you start a business, you will be getting into the area of social security as well, won't you? And green receipts. So can you tell us a little bit more about what happens when you step from being an everyday human being buying things in a supermarket and a restaurant and starting a business? What other considerations will there be at that point?
At that point, when you create a business, and of course there are different levels. This is something that I also have in my online course, and that, you know, in the summits I tried to make clear to people, is that you have different degrees of having businesses. You can have like opening activity in a tax office, which is not creating a different entity for the business. It's just you providing services as a freelancer. You can be an entrepreneur, a business in your own name, which means it's like a mid step between freelancing and owning a company, which is to say that there's not a company, but you work as an entrepreneur as well, just opening the activity in the finance office. And then there's the creation of company. When you create a company, it's important to state that you create an organization, you create an entity. This entity will have its own life, will have its own NIF, will have its own social security number, will have its own bank account. Okay, so this will be a separate body for the business. And this is very different when you're an entrepreneur or when you open the activity in the tax office. Okay, when you open the activity in the tax office, and mind you, please, you can only provide services if you're opening the activity in the tax office, okay? This is a very important distinction between being a freelancer or having a company, or being empresário individual, which is entrepreneur. I call it an entrepreneur. When you are a freelancer, all you can provide is services. You cannot sell goods, okay, or products, because you're a person. All a person can do is provide service, okay? And this is a very important distinction. And when you don't create a different body, a different entity for the business, that means that everything will be handled within your personal income world, okay? So any income that derives from the business is included in your own personal accounts. You'll pay personal income tax. So it's not like there's a different entity for the business that you create. When you do create a company, you have to have an accountant. You have to have a bank account for the company, but everything is segregated. And I'll give you my example. I have two companies, and I could, of course, be a freelancer with my consultancy activity because it's consultancy. But I did not choose that because I wanted to segregate financially what is my business world from what is my personal world, okay? And in my business, I pay myself a salary every month. And then I know that when I have that money in my personal account, I can go shopping, I can go expend it any way that I can. And with the business bank account, I can make expenses for the company. And for me, it was important to have this distinction. So, everything was not mixed up, because I have kids, because there's a lot of expenses with schools and such. And so I wanted to have everything segregated. I don't know if I'm rambling.
Well, not at all. That's really helpful. And I think it's important with this sort of thing to make it bite-sized so that we can come back. We can talk about it again on the Good Morning Portugal show, of course, and we can do another of these seminars. But I think the basics are important, and to break it down into these chunks and not to overwhelm people with information, because it is one of those areas where it's like, whoa. This is
I could go on like for hours on end about this. That's why sometimes I'm worried about, am I not talking too much? Because these things I see, and in the meetup that we did with Britta, there were so many people with, I'm not to say basic questions, but these are actual roadblocks for people to starting their own business. And that's what pisses me off, to be honest, because I mean, I see people that could be going places, that could be growing businesses, and they're afraid of doing so because they don't know. They think it's something that it's like very complicated. They don't always necessarily get the information from the best sources. I mean, I hate the freaking Facebook groups because everybody says whatever they feel like. And if, I mean, especially in the expat community, everybody that's ever been, through something here in Portugal thinks that they're suddenly the experts in that particular situation. And it's not. I mean, there's like a multitude of things to consider. There's
Raquel,
a ton. Yeah.
you're walking through the fire.
Yes, exactly. Well said. Well said. Yeah.
But it is. I mean, trust people. Just go to a professional. It doesn't have to be me. I'm here, of course. I'm available. But go to a professional. When you want to have a haircut, you don't. Actually, I do that myself. But if it's not done well, I cannot complain to anyone. I just have to shut up and handle it. And so that's how I see when you have an health issue, you go to the doctor. When you want to, you just seek professional help. It's not going to make you bankrupt, and quite the contrary, it can save you a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of hassle. So, and just don't go about, on the Facebook groups and trying to ask something, because that will for sure not be the best way to go about it. There's a lot of people just that think that they know it all, and usually they are know-it-alls that don't know a single thing about being here in Portugal.
We could have stronger networks as well, couldn't we, of people who are starting businesses? We're in the last few minutes, 5 minutes or so, and if there are any questions people want to ask, please get them into the chat now, and we'll come to the sort of concluding comments of our speakers tonight. Thank you, Steven. Thank you, Raquel, for being here. I have got an idea that I want to fly past you before we come to your concluding comments. I think there's room in this ecosystem of expats coming to Portugal and wanting to start businesses, or even just understanding what their responsibilities are from a taxation point of view, let alone starting a business. But on this matter, if they do want to start a business, and I really hear you, what a shame it is that somebody doesn't start a business because they're afraid to, or they've believed the wrong thing on Facebook. So it is important that they get help and helped through these blockages and roadblocks, as you put it. Do you think there's room, and is it feasible to have a business management company whereby people who do who have a thing that they do, they're creative, they might be a hairdresser, for example, the example you used, or a landscape gardener, or a creative artist of a different kind, if they just want to get on with what they do, could a service be created? Maybe it exists already, whereby they file their income and expenditure on a weekly basis through an app or through spreadsheets or something like that. The financial accountant, their tax accountant, or their day-to-day accountant, business advisor keeps an eye on this, tells them what they need to do, files the appropriate things, and takes a small cut of their overall business turnover for the convenience of that service, so that they're free to get on with what they want to do. Could we create such a thing for expats?
I'm on board. I'm in. Let's create something like that. I am in.
Yeah. Okay. Because that would help, wouldn't it? If so it's everything from the incorporation to the maintenance to the development of that business. There are three distinct areas, aren't there? You need to get started. There's the middle ground of the ongoing, the daily grind and even the daily light of running your business. But if you could just what do I do with this piece of paper? I just photograph it on my phone and it gets sent through to the HQ who is running my business. I don't have to think about any of that. I'm told what to do at the end of each month to file my EVA, my VAT, at the end of the year, my IRS. It seems like it would be a great convenience. And if it was if it was a percentage cost of that person's business, it's not like they would be impeded, would they, or disabled from their business development. And the third bit, of course, if you're networking with these people who are also running businesses and the people who are helping you manage your business, you've got some incredible business acumen and insight there, haven't you, to help develop and grow the business as well?
For sure.
Can I
And
touch
you're
on that a little bit?
focusing on what you do well. You are focusing on the creative part. You're not wasting time with anything else.
Yeah. Okay. So preach on, Raquel. We got a happy customer here tonight. Go on. I think you wanted to add to that, Stephen.
So one thing that I've discovered with Portugal that is different from Western society, and when I say Western society, I'm talking about UK, USA, Canada, kind of the Western world. Okay. We talk about over there, well, where I'm from in Canada, we talk about if you're doing something, you want to show to people. This is why TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, radio shows, they all get to this point of people want to show what they are able to do, and they want to be useful. And one thing that I've learned about Portugal is that it's almost you shouldn't talk about what you're doing. So I have, for example, a large property investment group. I'd say 7 out of 10 times, most people don't say anything in there, but everyone has something going on.
Yeah.
And it's what I'm trying to say is that I think we should maybe talk more about financial literacy and maybe talk more about what we're doing to help each other. Because yes, we're all in here for the rat race, but if you look at any business that has started, no one has done anything by themselves. Mm-hmm. A business consists of a team. You need a team to bring yourself up. And I don't think that enough people, and I'm not saying it's just Portuguese people, it's a worldwide issue that we've got going on. It's an epidemic that we've got on with this whole Instagram, TikTok, social media thing.
Well, like everyone did it alone.
Yeah, everyone is trying to do it alone, or they see someone do it on Facebook very easily in a 30-second video, and they think that, oh, I could do it myself. And then when it doesn't happen, they get turned away from it.
Well,
but people don't realize that these people did not do it by themselves. I didn't do it by myself. I learned it from a guy that I met on an airplane. You understand what I'm saying?
Brilliant. What a lovely story. We'll hear that another time. Well, thank you for that, Stephen. We've got a last word from you as well, Raquel, before we change into the Portugal Club and conclude this particular part, including a question. What is the blue bag I hear so much about, Raquel?
Well, I think then Antonio has put it quite. It is. It's like a bag where a fund, if you will, a pillow fund for and accounted for expenses. I see. When we say that we don't see where the money is coming from necessarily, or there's no record, we say it's from the blue bag.
The blue bag, the slush fund, perhaps, was another way of putting it back in the day. Brilliant. And a final word from you, please, Raquel. Encouragement, I'm sure. Do it. Start your business.
Yes. So please, if you have an idea, don't let just take that first step. And this is something that I really like to encourage people to do. Not everything is going to be perfect. You will not feel prepared for it at all. Okay. In any sort of way. It's like being a parent. You're never prepared for it, but then it's here and you have to handle it. So don't be afraid. Just take that step. Surround yourself with good professionals. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn, and you're going to make a lot better next time. But take that first step, because if you do not take that first step, nothing is going to change. So if you need a change in your life, believe in yourself, have faith in yourself, and just get it done. Not perfect, get it done. Okay. And surround yourself with good professionals. And just go grab that better life.
Fabulous. And I will echo the sentiments of Malcolm here, who we've not heard from for the whole call, but is moved to say at the end here, along with Amalia Ferreira, excellent literacy, Raquel, thank you. You make us feel secure. But Malcolm here as well, thank you for a great chat and all the valuable information and pertinent questions. Stephen as well. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in. We'll play our theme tune. Please stick around for a moment, if you will, a few more minutes, Steven and Raquel, so you can meet our Portugal Club members. And we'll see you after this. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Watch it again. This is one of those I think you need to watch again on the catch-up on YouTube. Thank you very much, Steven. Thank you very much, Raquel. Bye for now, everybody. Perfect. It's been really wonderful talking to you and getting a sense of your journey and how you engaged with Good Morning Portugal before and coming to the meetup as well. So you know where we are on a Wednesday.
Yes, I do.
And you know where we are as a community. So make sure we stay in touch, please.
Well, thank you for your efforts in bringing this community together, because you make it easier, more comfortable, less stressful for all of us
thank you.
by facilitating this.
Oh, that's
So
lovely to
thank
hear.
you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Lovely to hear that. Thank you very much indeed.